One of California's most prominent winter sports slopes hides a secret which few are aware of, as hiding in plain sight on the slopes of Mammoth Mountain is the remnants of a volcanic explosion crater which erupted within the last 1,000 years. This eruption, when it occurred, actually created two large craters, one of which has since been completely buried by erosion and the making of skiing and snowboarding slopes. While neither of these craters currently pose a hazard of erupting anytime soon in my opinion, they provide a fascinating reminder that Mammoth Mountain is indeed an active volcano. Although it is less active than, say, Lassen Peak, which tens of thousands of people witnessed erupt between 1914 and 1917, Mammoth Mountain is among a group of 6 volcanoes within California which have erupted at some point during the last 1,000 years. This video will discuss these two often overlooked volcanic features which many thousands of people have passed by each year without ever noticing. For context, the Mammoth Mountain volcano is located in east central California where it is 3.3 miles west-southwest of the city of Mammoth. Despite its impressive size, rising several thousand feet to a summit elevation of 11,053 feet, Mammoth Mountain is not actually a stratovolcano, as the lavas it erupted during its geologic history were so viscous that they built up into steep-sided domes which overlapped each other, forming what is classified as a lava dome complex. While Mammoth Mountain has not produced a magmatic eruption, aka one with visible lava, in 50,000 years, it is still considered as an active system. It is one of 3 volcanoes which exist along a 30-mile stretch of ground dotted with volcanic features. However, magmatic intrusions have still occasionally occurred underneath this volcano and its outskirts since then, even resulting in a volcanic eruption that formed the basaltic red cone cinder cones in 6500 BCE. More recently, a deep magmatic intrusion occurred underneath the mountain in 1989, but this stalled and is still solidifying at 9.3 miles depth. However, this failed intrusion did generate another effect as the solidifying magma has ever since released between 150 and 300 tons of carbon dioxide each day. This has seeped into several faults and fumaroles surrounding and on the mountain, resulting in large areas of dead and dying trees and vegetation, which can even reach lethal concentrations in some low-lying areas. The reason I am mentioning this is that the 2 craters which formed on Mammoth Mountain in the last 1,000 years likely were caused by an ancient, now fully solidified intrusion that reached far shallower into the crust than the 1989 intrusion did. Such an intrusion occurred around the year 1300, and although we have no idea how shallow it reached, I will simply guess 1 mile depth. The heat from the magma then transferred to overlying rock, which subsequently transferred its heat to overlying groundwater. This was sufficient to cause large volumes of groundwater to flash to steam, and since the same mass of steam when compared to water takes up more than 1,000 times the volume of water it once was, it causes an immense amount of pressure to build. When this pressure became sufficient to crack overlying rock, it was released upwards in a powerful explosion, hurling large boulders of rock in a 450-foot radius and generating a 3,000-foot high eruption plume. What had just occurred was known as a Phreatic eruption that did not contain any lava, and near the vent site as much as 12 feet thick of debris fell, primarily being composed of remobilized older volcanic rock. Then, a few minutes to hours later, a second Phreatic explosion occurred, carving out a 145-foot wide and 287-foot long crater at a spot 575 feet to the west-northwest of the first crater. A third explosion followed from the same crater, and by the time the ash and debris had cleared, hundreds of trees had been felled by the massive debris, which was a minimum of 3 feet thick in the shaded area, being as much as 33 feet thick next to the second and third crater vents. While these eruptions might have seemed quite large to a person had they witnessed the event, in the broader geologic context they were quite small. I estimated that the 3 explosions ejected as a combined total between 67,000 and 164,000 cubic meters of ash and tephra, meaning this single eruptive sequence on the 0 to 9 volcanic explosivity index would have been only assigned as a 1. As a final note, I would like to thank my new YouTube member Luck Zombie for supporting this channel.